Good evening. Today I want us we have a look at something that is bringing controversies, is bringing challenges, is bringing several issues, emerging issues, and those are weeds. When you talk about agriculture and its significant contribution to the economy of Kenya, we boil down to the farmer. Farmer is the key component in the sector of agriculture. A farmer engages him or herself every day in the farm. And when they are producing, there is a very great challenge known as weed. So when you talk about weed, a weed is a plant whose disadvantages outweighs their advantages. In other words, they have more disadvantages than advantages. This weed which you are seeing here is known as nutgrass, botanically Cyperus rotudas. This weed is causing scrupulous and conspicuous challenges to the farmer. Reason being, this weed, if you look at this, if you uproot this weed, for example, you can see it has underground rhizomes. We call these rhizomes. These are rhizomes. This one. So we have the roots and underground rhizomes. That is why it is very, very difficult to control this weed, because this weed, it propagates itself vegetatively by use of these underground rhizomes. This weed is unique and is driving and causing challenges to the farmers because it is able to withstand or to tolerate or to make up with heat, too much heat, is able to make up with flooding and also drought. So, even if these harsh adversarial climatic conditions are there, this weed will still thrive. So, the best way to control this weed is by uprooting, because if you slash these weeds, you're going to slash the leaves. So that means you are going to leave the underground rhizomes. So once they get ideal conditions for germinations, they are going to germinate again. So the best way is to uproot. Once you uproot, you have even uprooted the rhizomes, their vegetative part of propagation. So when you are controlling these weeds, is is wise to uproot than to use slashing or use of chemicals. You know chemicals, eh? There is one thing I want you to know, that 60% of cancers which are commonly affecting Kenyans nowadays is because of use of synthetic chemicals. When you talk about synthetic chemicals, we are talking about chemicals. For example, if you are controlling these weeds, this is a monocot. Basically, if you look at the leaf, the leaves are narrow and long. So this clearly indicate this is a monocot weed. When you talk about classification of weeds, this is a narrow-leaved weed. So in most cases, we use herbicides which contain glyphosate as active ingredient. You know, glyphosate is a very risky active ingredient when it comes to control of these weeds. Because once you spray glyphosate containing products to control weeds, among them nut grass, that glyphosate stays in the soil. It is non-biodegradable, meaning it does not break down easily. So once you plant uh, like your Irish potato like this, what do? They absorb that glyphosate and then you take it when you're consuming that potato. In the long run, it brings cases of cancer. Once you go to Europe, there is a company known as Monsanto's, that is in America. There is another company known as Bayer in Germany. Those are two companies supplying chemicals in Kenya. And one of the chemicals they supply is herbicide, and that contain glyphosate. Now, in their countries of origin, those two companies, they are not allowed to sell any chemical containing glyphosate because they know in the long run it is going to cause damage to the health. They are carcinogenic. Glyphosate. It interferes with the reproductive system. They bring about mutagenicity. They cause harm to the aquatic environment. So they are not good. So once you spray them, they bring, they, they introduce glyphosate to our crops in the process of controlling these weeds. Like according to Food En Route 2023, Kenyans used herbicide of 3.068 tons of these chemicals, worth over 800 million Kenyan shillings. And this commodity were applied by farmers in Kenya. When those companies were asked why do they bring those commodities to Africa, they said it's because we have a ready market in Africa, and Kenya is one of them. So if we can reduce the use of synthetic chemicals, we are doing the best thing even to our health. So as we control these weeds, let us control them by minimizing the use of herbicides, and then we can go to the cultural way of controlling these weeds. Thank you.